Hello, football fans. It's the NFL Exporter checking in February 2015. The 2014 season is officially over. Let's take a look back now. We're going to take a look at our 2014/15 offensive coordinators and evaluate the job that they did. Greg Roman is now going to be taking over as the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. We know that Roman was able to do an excellent job prior to last year in San Francisco, having one of the most effective running games in the NFL, and I think this is a good pickup for Buffalo from that aspect. If you do not have, and particularly a very good or a great quarterback, you certainly want to be able to run the football effectively, and I think if you think back out to San Francisco, what Roman was able to do prior to last season, San Francisco always amongst the top teams in the NFL running the football. Certainly Buffalo has to figure out who they want their main guy to be. You have veteran Fred Jackson, who's on the tail end of his career. Don't know if they're going to recommit to C.J. Spiller. You have Bryce Brown there. Buffalo Bills also need to do a better job at getting in some better offensive linemen, but that is what Roman's specialty was out in San Francisco. We'll see if he can come in and do the same for Buffalo. I just question how effective he can be in helping the Bills passing game, which is an area they're really struggling in right now, considering the lack of progress from third-year quarterback E.J. Emanuel. You look at the Miami Dolphins last year; they had a new offensive coordinator. We were talking about Bill Lazor for the Miami Dolphins, and I think this was an area of concern to me for Miami. I think Miami's offense, from what I've seen, was an offense that kind of blew whichever way the wind took it. You know, if Miami got off to an early lead, then they kind of designed a offense to kind of play it safe. If they got behind early, then they transformed their offense to passing a lot. So I think this Miami Dolphins offense, and particularly Bill Lazor, needs to establish an identity. Miami needs to figure out if they're going to be a run-first team, a pass-first team, and really look to be a team that's going to impose its will on opposing defenses as opposed to defenses dictating to what Miami can do. Chan Gailey is now going to be the offensive coordinator for the New York Jets. He's certainly got his work cut out. You're talking about trying to develop a young quarterback in Geno Smith, who thus far has really struggled. You have some pretty decent running backs in Chris Ivory and Chris Johnson. Can that offensive line open up the holes? And then he's got to get some more talent. You know, certainly Eric Decker is a solid receiver. Don't know if they're going to resign Percy Harvin, but outside of those two guys, not a lot of talent on the outside. So he's got his work cut out trying to figure out ways he can get this Jets offense to play more consistently and put some points up on the board. We look at the Baltimore Ravens now. They lost Gary Kubiak. You bring in Mark Trestman. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this works out. If you look at what Gary Kubiak was able to do, a guy who brought that zone blocking scheme over there, which boded well for Baltimore. You had a rusher in Justin Forsett, up over 1,200 yards. We know Trestman's a guy who likes to pass the football a bit more. Certainly could do wonders. Joe Flacco likes to air it out. You have some nice weapons in Torrey Smith and Steve Smith Sr., Jacoby Jones, Marlon Brown, you know, those guys inside. But I think it'll just be interesting to see what type of balance is going to be there for Baltimore. Is this going to be a team that's going to focus more on the pass, which at least the year before kind of hurt them, or can they balance it out? Can they be a team that can run the football effectively, use that to set up play action, and let Joe Flacco throw the football down the field? Hugh Jackson was in his first year in 2014 for Cincinnati. Huge kudos to this guy. What a great job he did, really coming in and trying to do everything he possibly could to take some of the pressure off of Andy Dalton and limit his mistakes. Now, it didn't happen. Dalton has proven to be a guy who shrinks in the big moments. He's just not that guy. We do understand that Cincinnati's offense was banged up last year. A.J. Green missed some games. Giovanni Bernard missed some games. Tyler Eifert missed the whole season, and Marvin Jones missed the whole season. They're number 2 wide receiver, so he's going to get a lot of talent back there. But if you think about what Hugh Jackson was able to do, pounding the football with Jeremy Hill, bringing Giovanni Bernard back into the fold, I think the Cincinnati offense, if it can get healthy and make the proper progressions in the offseason, should be much better last year, and that's scary considering how well they were able to run the football. Cleveland Browns, they're now going to have to go out and get somebody to be offensive coordinator. Kyle Shanahan no longer there. I don't think you can blame him. I think it's going to be difficult. You're looking at a Cleveland Browns team that's down to basically one good quarterback in Brian Hoyer, a couple good young running backs, but on the outside, without Josh Gordon, question marks around tight end Jordan Cameron. I just think it's a position that's not too attractive right now. Greg Olson is now the offensive coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's got a youth movement going on there, so he's got his work cut out. You got a franchise quarterback coming into his second year in Blake Bortles you have to develop. You have to now you have a good running back in Denard Robinson. But if you look at the offensive line, you've got to solidify that. And wide receiver is really the question mark. You have your veterans in Cecil Shorts III, who's been injury prone his whole career. Justin Blackmon, a lot of talent, battling off the field issues. 3 rookie wide receivers who were on the football field last year, and so they're going to have to figure that situation out there. Tennessee Titans, last year, Jason Michael was their offensive coordinator. Again, very difficult to have an effective offense when your quarterback situation is in disarray. Jake Locker started the season. He was injured most of the time. Rookie Zach Mettenberger came in, showed his true colors, so I know it feels good that you got your guy you're going to develop now. You got to find a way to get the running game going. You have a second-year guy in Bishop Sankey. You got to get him going. You can't run the football. It doesn't do good things for your young quarterback. And then I think at the wide receiver position, you got to make some decisions. You have some guys there who are pretty decent, but injury prone. And so I think Jason Michael, he's got a lot of work that he's got to do in the offseason. Rick Dennison, he's now taken over the offensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos. And, I don't want to say his job is easy, but when you have a good established head coach coming in like Gary Kubiak, who's been around the game for 30 plus years, you have a top tier quarterback like Peyton Manning, certainly going to make the workload much lighter on him. I think the biggest challenge Dennison is going to have to deal with is figuring out who's going to be your main running back. You have Monty Ball there, you have Ronnie Hillman, C.J. Anderson came on strong. You have Jawan Thompson. And then what are you going to do with Demaryius Thomas? What are you going to do with Julius Thomas? Is Wes Welker going to be back? So I think those are the dynamics that Rick Dennison has to work out, but he's certainly set up for success there. Bill Musgrave is now your offensive coordinator for the Oakland Raiders. Again, a young quarterback in Derek Carr, who played very well as a rookie. You've got to continue to make sure that this guy is making a progress year in and year out. You've got Latavius Murray. I think you got a running back in there now, so now you got to upgrade that offensive line. Make sure the holes are open to him, and you certainly got to make sure your receivers on the outside, young guys like Andre Holmes, those guys are making the proper progression. So I think that Bill Musgrave has some things he has to work with here if he pushes the right buttons and really taps into that talent. San Diego Chargers, their new offensive coordinator last year was Frank Reich. Did a pretty decent job, but they've got to run the football. You've got a quarterback in Phillip Rivers. The weapons are there in the passing game, but San Diego really struggled to run the football, and I think it's durability issues. You're looking at Ryan Matthews hurt for a long extended period of time. Donald Brown, his backup, he's injury prone. Brandon Oliver looked like he's the answer, but I think now you got to get some depth there. So Frank Reich certainly's got his work cut out as far as getting that running game going. You look at the Dallas Cowboys, great job by Scott Linehan, really coming over. Offensive line, best in the NFL, went out making that splash, picking up offensive lineman Zach Martin in the first round. DeMarco Murray, he's up running, leading the NFL, over 1,800 yards. Cowboys able to find that ultimate balance when you have DeMarco Murray, 1,845 rushing yards, 13 rushing TDs. Dez Bryant, over 1,200 yards, 13 receiving TDs. Tony Romo, over 3,000 yards, 30-plus TD passes. So the balance was perfect for the Dallas Cowboys offense. I think for them, it's really just a matter of can they sign DeMarco Murray and Dez Bryant. If they can bring those players back, this Cowboys offense attack could even be more prolific than it was last year, and that's certainly scary. New York Giants, their new offensive coordinator in 2014 was Ben McAdoo. Did a decent job. The offensive line is really the area that they need to upgrade. You're figuring Victor Cruz coming back into the equation. You're seeing what Odell Beckham Jr. can do. You have a nice young tight end there, Ruben Randall on the other side. In the backfield, Rashard Jennings and Andre Williams. Eli Manning certainly played much better than he did the year before. So all the pieces in place. It's really a matter of getting that offensive line healthy, getting them to play well, and just kind of getting everybody on the same page for what could be a very explosive offense for the Jets this year. Sean McVay, offensive coordinator in 2014 for Washington, failed miserably in his first year. Let's just call it what it is. Certainly injuries were involved, but that Washington Redskins offense played so far below what was expected. The pieces are still there with RG3, with Pierre Garçon, Deshaun Jackson, Jordan Reed, Alfred Morris in the backfield. Nice change of pace guy in Roy Halou. Nice third receiver in Andre Roberts. Maybe a season like that filled with obstacles will do some wonders for this Washington Redskins team that on paper has a ton of talent, but it's got to translate over to the football field. Adam Gase is now your guy for the Chicago Bears. This is going to be his first year. He came over with John Fox. The familiarity is there. The weapons are there, certainly. You got Jay Cutler, Matt Forte, Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey, Martellus Bennett. So I think it's just really a matter of getting a little bit more of that running game going with Matt Forte and just trying to find a way to get Jay Cutler to cut down on turnovers. But again, Cutler's a guy throughout the course of his career who's averaged 17 interceptions and 22 TD passes in the 5 years he's been able to play an entire season. So I think it is what it is at this point. We look at the Detroit Lions now. Their offensive coordinator in 2014 was Joe Lombardi. Poor job, in my opinion. Now, granted, again, when we went over our draft coverage, I certainly think that Detroit could have helped themselves by bringing in a top-tier offensive lineman to the tune of a Taylor Lewan, to the tune of a Zach Martin, to the tune of a Jawan Jones. Nonetheless, that Detroit offense really struggled. Now, injuries were certainly a key part of that. You're figuring Calvin Johnson, Reggie Bush, as well as your top 3 tight ends all missed significant time. But from what I've seen, when they were all healthy, Detroit struggled in pass protection, struggled to run the football. That's an area Joe Lombardi is going to have to address. Norv Turner, in his first year last year in Minnesota, did a good job. I think that certainly Cordero Patterson is a guy that he's got a real back end. Did everything in his power to make sure Patterson was featured, but as the season went on, we've seen Patterson struggling with route running and things of that nature. By the time the season was over, this guy was on the bench. You don't want a young player like that getting down early with that much talent, so Turner's got to reel him back in. Obviously, not having Adrian Peterson there was a big blow because Turner's a guy who likes to run the football, which sets up play action. Kyle Rudolph, your nice tight end, he was injured the majority of the season as well. So I think that, what they're going to do with Adrian Peterson, if he's back in the lineup healthy, you have a healthy Kyle Rudolph. Teddy Bridgewater's now your guy. I think that Norv Turner and this offense can be much better if those pieces are in place for this year. Kyle Shanahan is now taking his efforts from Cleveland to Atlanta. Not quite sold on it. Really don't know how I feel about that. Kyle Shanahan was really indecisive, especially with his handling of the running back situation. You certainly hope that doesn't happen here. We know that Atlanta has a top-tier talent on offense through the air with Matt Ryan, Roddy White, Julio Jones. Got to establish the offensive line. Got to find a way to run the football. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they've got a new offensive coordinator this year, Dirk Koetter. Similar situation. Look, Tampa Bay right now, everybody thinking they're going to go Jameis Winston on their first round pick, so he's got to be preparing himself to upgrade and progress and groom a rookie quarterback. They've got key decisions they need to make in their backfield, and they've got to get that running game going. It was very poor this past year in Tampa Bay, which is never going to be successful. Make your young quarterback successful. Got a nice piece on the outside, Mike Evans. We know that Vincent Jackson is getting older, but Dirk Koetter has definitely got a lot of work ahead of him running that offense in Tampa Bay. And then the St. Louis Rams, another position that I don't think right now is too attractive. You got a quarterback with Sam Bradford who's been unhealthy. You got a rookie behind him in Austin Davis who's showing some promise. What do you do with veteran Sean Hill? Trey Mason now is your running back, but then what do you do outside? Tavon Austin hasn't been able to do much. Brian Quick got injured last year. Kenny Britt showed some flashes. So I really think, this Rams offense has really got to get their quarterback and passing game situation together, or they're going to continue to struggle on a year-in and year-out basis. That's the NFL wrap up this year for your offensive coordinators. Those were your new coordinators in 2014, as well as your new coordinators for 2015. I'm the NFL Exporter. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at NFL Exporter, or send me a friend request to facebook.com/NFL Exporter. The spelling for both of those, NFLExporter.